The Quran was revealed in the 7th century to a trading society. Muhammad was not a monk, he was a merchant. The first Muslims were people who knew commerce. They moved goods across deserts. They understood price, risk, debt, and profit. So, why are Muslim countries poor? That is the question 100 million people type into a search bar every year, and almost none of them get the real answer. Because the answer isn't in the country, it's in what was done to the country, and it starts with what was done to this book. Stay with me. Let's start with the most misunderstood verse in Islamic economics. Surah Al-Baqarah, Al-Baqarah, 275. Those who consume riba, will not stand on the day of resurrection except as one who is being beaten by Satan into insanity. That is not a gentle suggestion. That is a hard stop. Riba in Arabic does not simply mean interest. It means increase without effort, guaranteed gain from a loan, with the borrower carrying all the risk and the lender none. The Quran called that theft with extra steps. The prohibition on riba was radical in 7th century Arabia. Moneylenders were the power structure. Muhammad walked into that world and told his followers, that system is haram. Then Surah Al-Hashr, 59:7. This is the one that never gets preached. So that wealth does not circulate only among the wealthy of you. 6 words. The entire thesis of Islamic economic justice in 6 words. The Quran is not saying poverty is holy. It is saying concentrated wealth is the sin. That's a whole frame. The Quran built a 3-pillar system: zakat, riba prohibition, waqf. Together, they formed the most sophisticated pre-modern wealth redistribution mechanism in history. Let's walk through each one. Pillar 1. Zakat. Every Muslim with savings above a threshold, called the nisab, roughly the value of 85 grams of gold, was required to give 2.5% of that savings annually, not 2.5% of income, of accumulated wealth. Year after year, the pile gets smaller unless you keep it in circulation. The Quran treated hoarding as a structural violation, not a moral failing, a structural one. Pillar 2. The riba ban. No interest-bearing loans. This forced capital to flow differently. Instead of lending at interest, Muslim merchants developed mudaraba, profit-sharing partnerships where both sides carry the risk. Capital and labor in genuine partnership. The investor wins when the business wins, loses when it loses. No guaranteed extraction. Pillar 3. The waqf. This is the one that was buried. A waqf is an Islamic charitable endowment. You donate an asset, land, a building, a water source, permanently for public benefit. The asset can never be sold, never privatized. It generates income forever, and that income serves the community forever. By the 11th century, the Bimaristan hospital system in Baghdad was largely waqf funded, free treatment, for everyone, including non-Muslims. Al-Qarawiyyin University in Fez, Morocco, established 859 CE, is the oldest continuously operating university in the world. It was founded by a woman, Fatima al-Fihri, and funded entirely by a waqf, no tuition. Waqf covered it. In pre-colonial Algeria, historians estimate that waqf lands covered 1/3 or more of the country's agricultural land, not owned by individuals, not controlled by a state, held in perpetual trust for the public. Schools, mosques, fountains, orphanages, all running on the returns from that land. Hear that clearly, 1/3 or more. That is not a fringe system. That is a civilization's operating infrastructure. Before we get to what happened to that system, subscribe. This channel runs with no institutional funding, no denomination, no advertiser telling us what to say. Your subscription is what keeps it independent. Hit subscribe now. 1830. France invades Algeria. The surrender treaty that ended the military campaign included a specific guarantee. Islamic institutions would be protected. The waqf system was named. France signed it. 13 years later, in 1843, France issued a decree. The Islamic endowments, called habus, in the Maghreb, were confiscated, not regulated, not restructured, confiscated. The land that had funded schools, hospitals, mosques, and orphanages for centuries, seized. In direct violation of the treaty France had signed. France wasn't alone. British colonial administration in Egypt and India restructured waqf management, inserting state control, replacing independent trustees with government-appointed officials, rerouting income streams. The mechanism wasn't destroyed in every case, it was captured. Then independence came, and here is the part that rarely gets discussed. The secular governments that followed colonial rule continued the pattern. Egypt nationalized Waqf assets in 1952. Turkey nationalized and secularized the Waqf system under Ataturk, Turk, placing all endowments under state control by 1925. The post-colonial states inherited the colonial logic. Waqf land is land we could be controlling. So you had Zakat collection, gutted or made voluntary in many states. Riba bond replaced by Western banking systems introduced during colonial rule. Waqf either seized, nationalized, or reduced to a bureaucratic ghost. 3 pillars, all 3 undermined, not by the Quran, by what was done to the countries that once lived by it. So how did we get here? From a civilization that was funding free hospitals and universities in the 11th century to a global image of poverty and underdevelopment in the 21st. The answer is not Islam. The Quran said wealth must not concentrate. It built a system to prevent that concentration. That system was systematically dismantled over 150 years of colonial and post-colonial policy. That is not a religious failure. That is a policy record. Let's come back to the text. Because the Quran's economic vision isn't only a critique, it's a blueprint. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:261. The example of those who spend their wealth in the way of God is like a seed of grain that sprouts 7 spikes. In each spike is 100 grains. The Quran doesn't frame generosity as sacrifice. It frames it as compounding return. Money that moves, that circulates, that builds, that invests in community, multiplies. Money that sits and accumulates in one place rots the system. That's not a spiritual metaphor. It's an economic observation. And here is something worth knowing. The global Islamic finance industry was worth approximately $4 trillion in 2024 and is one of the fastest growing financial sectors in the world. Malaysia, the UAE, and Indonesia have developed modern financial instruments, sukuk bonds, mudarabah partnerships that honor the riba prohibition. There are Waqf revival projects across Africa, Southeast Asia, and the UK, community endowments funding affordable housing, clinics, schools, not as a charity drive, as structural wealth infrastructure, the way the Quran always intended. The blueprint was never wrong. It was buried, and it's being dug out. If you're sitting with this, maybe you grew up Muslim and the money conversation in your community was always, don't be greedy, give sadaqah, and somehow that never quite added up to anything structural. Hear this clearly. The Quran did not tell you to be poor. It told the world not to engineer your poverty. Wealth must not circulate only among the wealthy. That verse is not aspirational. It's architectural. It describes a world that once existed, a world that was taken apart, piece by piece, with legislation and armies. You are not the problem, and the tradition is not the problem. The problem had a name, a date, and a signature on a treaty that was broken 13 years later. Whatever your relationship with Islam right now, whether you're in it, outside it, questioning it, you deserve to know what it actually said. Not the version extracted from it by people who needed it to produce compliant subjects. The actual text. Read the text. Trust what you find.